Our first order of business was to get familiar with our monster avatars. The second important step was gearing up. We were equipped with revival bracelets that suffered from no usage limits, allowing us to resurrect, no matter how many times we died in a row. But that alone would not be enough, as our monster avatars were just recently created and were still low-tier monsters. Right now, we were nothing more than a couple of chimps, and no matter what we did, we could not harm members of Green Rebellion. However, if we were to somehow become equipped with some high-grade gear. Next up, it's important for us to get armed. Let's go find Kurobee and ask him to make us some weapons and armor. Oh, I see. If we were to continue as we are right now, I'd be nothing more than a rickety skeleton. Phew, you fools. My body is a slime, the agile extraordinaire. I'm goody to go with what I got. Sorry if this is a dumb question, but if I'm a set of armor, can I still wear armor? Who knows? Perhaps you can make it work. Let's take a look first. Millum doesn't need any weapons, so please stay and keep watch. Well, what kind of nonsense? Of course, I could stick with what I have now, but I still want to gear up. How stubborn, why didn't you just say that from the start? Naturally, I wanted some gear too. So, I temporarily broke out of possession and prepared to head out. If you want to get back to your original form, just utter exit, and you'll be able to return to your bodies. I demonstrated the exit method to them and taught them how to store their avatar core. The avatar core would only record monsters created at a prior point in time. One core corresponded to one monster, and you could not change its owner. This item represented everyone's core, so I reminded them to take good care of it. Thus, I gave further clarification. With this, you can also call upon your avatar whenever you want. This is amazing. But when we do use possession, we should think about where to place our original body. Baldor and Ramrus had reverted to their original forms and stood up from their seats. To make sure we don't lose it, how about we seal it in the bracelet? That's right, I was gonna do that as well. She began to stroke the orb avatar core happily. I'd have someone work on the bracelet as well. By the way, what was Millum doing? Oi, Millum. I'm going in this form. Without letting me finish, Millum, still in her slime form, jumped into my arms. Let's go. She protested, fully prepared to ignore everyone's words, and had the scene under her control. It looked like she really adored the avatar. That's kind of childish. But, well, she's a kid, after all. You can't reason with kids about how childish they are. I decided to give up and began to walk away. We arrived at Kurobee's workshop. Are you there, Kurobee? Oh, is it Rimuru-sama? What can I do for you today? As soon as I called, Kurobee came out to welcome us. Seeing that Baldor and Ramrus were with me too, he looked quite surprised. I said as we walked into the workshop, I wanted to take some weapons. It had been a while since I was last there. The number of people in the workshop had increased, including monsters. And it was still as hot as ever. I wasn't affected by temperature though, so it didn't matter to me. But it looked like working here was quite the hardship. Looks like you've gotten more disciples. Yes, thanks to your majesty. Although they still have a long way to go, there are still many talented individuals among our ranks. We toured around the workshop as we chatted. The disciples looked up at the sound of my voice, and, seeing me, stood up in unison and saluted. I was somewhat taken aback, but Kurobee had gotten used to it at this point. Don't stop. Get back to work, he bellowed and forced the disciples to carry on. However, I could relate to how they felt. It was like when a top executive went to visit the average Joe's workplace. People would get nervous. Moreover, the lower on the chain of command, the more nervous the staff would feel. Although the example doesn't entirely line up with the situation at hand, in this nation, I was the king. I didn't really pay attention to such things in the past, but now it was probably better for me to send someone in advance to inform them about such a visit. Surely, it would concern people if I were to just drop by at random like this. In the company of my original world, if someone such as a general manager were to come around and visit, we would launch an office cleanup the day before, and make preparations, etc. If the person visiting were to be the director of the company, we would have prepared the office in a way that gave the impression that no failure was tolerated. The higher the status the visitor was, the more casual they tended to behave, which in turn made us at the bottom put too much thought into preparations. With that being said, I sincerely hope they wouldn't prepare something dramatic every time just because of me. It also made me feel bad to suddenly call Kurobee while he was busy, so next time I'd be sure to come during off hours. Sorry to barge in on you, I announced to the room. I wouldn't be dropping in this sporadically in the future, no need to be so nervous. It may cause a problem if they acted too familiar with me, but there wasn't a need to be nervous about it. I like to act cool, but I had no taste for embarrassing people. If they became too nervous, they wouldn't know how to react, which would also be troubling to me. I preferred an idiot-like response from someone like Gata. TPO time, place and occasion when reacting to things. I hope they would understand this. The disciples were calmed by my words. Confirming that, I nodded and entered the back room. As a side note, there was something I didn't know at the time. Those disciples were not just nervous because I was their demon lord. Without my notice, Tempest held a popularity contest. I was voted as one of the top 3 idols. There were me, Shun and Xion. I heard that my popularity seemed to have been extraordinarily high. In addition, Rammus and Milim were candidates as well. I don't dare to say the ranking, but I heard that Milim and I smashed the top of the charts. Seriously, should I sigh or feel joy about their growth? I was dumbfounded after being informed of what they were doing behind my back. Which types of gear do you need? As we entered Kurobee's private quarters, he cut to the chase. About that. Since he asked what we wanted, we each began to list all the items we had in mind. I want to ask Garm to craft some armor for us. It should be fun for you two to work together again. You have a point. I was going to check on Garm anyway. With that said, we accompanied Kurobee on his way to Garm's workshop. We stirred up a commotion once more, but I played dumb this time. Gear for monsters. Master's still got all the interesting ideas as always. Garm was rather shocked as we each possessed our avatars in front of him. I understand. Then I shall do as you asked. Actually, let me prepare something even better. Just count on me. I'm getting the creative itch as well. I'm going to create the ultra-strong gear that no human can hope to wield. Kurobee and Garm got on with their craft immediately. I'm looking forward to it, I thought to myself, and left with the folks. It was gonna take days for the crafting to be completed. We spent this time getting used to the avatars, and thus we began our training. We did things like fighting monsters on the upper floors or attacking newcomers who seemed like actual adventurers. During these few days, we began to assign roles and were getting pretty good at it. But before we had reached that level of teamwork, we took plenty of beatings. We were even losing to beginner teams on the upper floors. There were times when we were taken out by our own trap set in the labyrinth. Those were some awkward moments. That did really piss me off though, leading to the development of magic items that would prevent the labyrinth traps from getting triggered by us. However, the times we did fall to these traps would remain as fond memories. Rammus fell into a trap, getting Vildora tangled up in it as well. I floated into the air while Milim got pushed against the ceiling. Since I didn't have to worry about getting caught in traps, I had gotten careless and forgot to alert them. It was a huge misstep, but, speaking of which, Rammus, how did you end up falling into a trap? I could feel everyone relentlessly teasing her about it. And so, as we endured, we trained all day and night without even catching a wink of sleep. In combat, the most important thing was coordination. Under normal circumstances, we would have been able to call out to each other or give signals with a glance. However, we didn't have neat tricks like that. Mostly because Vildora and Milim were both tryhards. However, I did have a skill that was basically like cheating. I could use telepathy net to contact everyone and deliver them precise commands. With myself as the command post, Vildora, Milim, and Rammus were my foot soldiers. And in that way, we drastically increased our strength and raised our standards. Once we could move with a certain level of confidence, we began to review our teamwork. Days passed as we waited for the equipment to be finished. It was then that we were informed about Green Rebellion managing to break through floor 49. This is bad. Those people finally beat the Tempest Serpent. Their combat style is extremely meticulous. Their first group of combatants would collect intelligence, followed by the rest of the teams focusing on draining the enemy's stamina, and finally beating the Guardian using their main force. Even if a Guardian were to be defeated, they would be revived at full health shortly thereafter. However, in the case that a Guardian won, the scars and tiredness accrued would remain. If it were to continue to fight, the circumstances would clearly be in the favor of the challengers. That was our miscalculation. We should have provided more ways for the Guardians to heal themselves. But all those monsters rely on instincts to survive. Vildora commented. His rationale was that those monsters weren't intelligent enough to use healing items. That was correct, but perhaps there was still a way. Should we perhaps ask Trainee-san for help? Being the labyrinth managers, surely they would be able to heal the monsters. I see. I should go ask her for help. And that was how Trainee-san's sisters became part of the aid team to heal the monsters when they were wrapped up in continuous fights. Thus, one by one, we managed to address all the issues. Next. Those people are approaching floor 49 fast. What do we do, Rimuru? Milim asked anxiously. Like she said, Green Rebellion was about to enter the final battleground with us. Our coordination should be sufficient despite our lack of equipment. Shall we attack them straight away? I agree. It's finally time for me to shine. I'm gonna beat the devil out of those folks. Vildora and Rammus were pumped. To be honest, even if we were to fight seriously, our chances of winning weren't that high. I put my strongest traps on floor 49, so that was the only location where we could pull back Team Green Rebellion. This can't be helped, huh? We should at least wear some emergency gear. Anyway, even if we were wearing top gear crafted by Kurobee and Garm, we wouldn't be able to face our enemies head-on. Although it would greatly increase the chances of our victory, so we might as well give it a try. Upon thinking so, I was about to decide when. Knock knock. The sound of someone knocking on the door rang in the meeting room. Rimuru-sama, Kurobee wanted to tell you that he's ready. Xiao notified me. Hearing the news, we looked at each other with grins on our faces. The gear specially crafted for our monster avatars had been completed. My gear were the Grim Reaper's side and robes of hell. The ghost could wear equipment as well, it was a specific property of magical gear. Vildora's got the Grim Reaper's bastard sword and full body armor of hell. His left hand was equipped with the great shield of Hell's Gate. He was fully geared up. As for Milim, who was playing as slime, she could only be equipped with simple things. She first swallowed the Grim Reaper's javelin, and wore a crimson feathered cape. She immediately gained a pair of red wings after equipping it. That's some incredible change. The gear has to be equipped or it won't activate the effect, Milim said with glee. Since she was happy, I had no room to say anything. Ramrus was next. She asked for heavy full-body armor from Kurobee. The armor itself was finely crafted, the problem was whether or not she could wear it. Ramrus anxiously transferred herself to her avatar and tried to put on the armor. At that moment, lo and behold, the armor had been swapped out. With a loud clang, the rubbish armor fell to the ground and turned into dust before being blown away by the wind. Ramrus's animated armor became heavy animated armor. This was not an evolution, and it also didn't seem to be a change in equipment. Instead, the pieces of armor themselves swapped their places. I move so swiftly now. Just as Ramrus said, before this her movement was very unnatural, like she needed to be lubricated. Now her movement looked very smooth. This would, surely, make coordination much smoother with her. I never expected the quality of the armor to have an effect on movement. What an unexpected discovery. Seeing how happy Ramrus looked, I asked her to choose her weapons and shield. Pooh. Stuff like shields are unnecessary for me. Saying that, she chose a large two-handed weapon, the Grim Reaper's great axe. Its sheer might makes it a top-notch weapon, though wielding it may prove difficult. But never mind that, this would do. She always got mocked for being weak, so she probably got a little carried away this time. Interestingly, it reflected her personality as well. And so, everyone changed to their new equipment.